to this edition of Backstage Pass with Leah Chang.
On October 4th, Signature Theater unveiled the 42nd Street and Dyer Avenue intersection in New York City's Hell's Kitchen neighborhood as the newly co-named Jim Houghton Way, celebrating the groundbreaking company's founder, the late James Houghton. For this festive gathering, elected officials, legendary members of the city's theater community, and members of the Houghton family gathered at Pershing Square Signature Center in honor of Houghton, who formed the company in 1991 with a mission of supporting playwrights through a multi-play residency model designed to invest in a body of work and provide a supportive artistic home. The program began at Pershing Square Signature Center, featuring remarks by Signature Artistic Director Paige Evans, Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine, City Council Member Erik Bottcher, New York State Senator Brad Hoylman, Signature Board Chair Ed Norton, Houghton's daughter Lily Houghton, and Signature Residency 5 playwright Brandon Jacobs-Jenkins.
Thank you all so much for joining us for this exciting event. I had the pleasure and privilege of getting to know Jim a bit towards the end of his life. He was an extraordinary man with great artistic vision. This street naming is a fitting tribute to the incredible contribution that Jim made to the American theater and to his impact on this neighborhood where he worked and lived for decades. I'll keep this brief and let others who knew Jim better speak about him. But first, I wanted to recognize some of you who are here with us today. First, members of Jim's family, his kids, Lily and Henry Houghton. Jim's siblings, Lynn Houghton and Joanne Giono, Scott and Kay Houghton, Tricia Line and Hannah Line, and Jim's cousin, Matt Smith. Some of them came from California. Finally, an important member of Jim's family, who sadly is not with us today in body, but I imagine is with us in spirit, is Joyce O'Connor, Jim's wife of many years, who was essential to the life of Signature Theater. I also want to thank the members of the theater community and our Hell's Kitchen neighborhood who wrote letters in support of this street naming, several of whom are here today, and everyone who signed our petition. We could not have done this without you. Thank you. District 3 Community Council Member Erik Bottcher, as well as Jordan Feiner and Scott Coughlin from Erik Bottcher's team, were also instrumental. I also want to thank Signature's staff members, past and present, who created our proposal for this street naming. Glenn Stiskel, who had the incredible idea to name our block after Jim, and Rob Mercado and Jenna Clark Embry, who created our proposal. And last, but certainly not least, our wonderful Associate Artistic Director, Beth Whitaker, who worked closely with Jim over many years and worked tirelessly to make this street naming happen and to organize this event. Thanks too to our elected officials who have joined us today and our other speakers. I'm going to say their name in the order in which they'll be speaking, and then they'll come up and speak. Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine, City Council Member Erik Bottcher. You'll have a chance to applaud after they speak. State Senator Brad Hoylman, Signature Board Chair Ed Norton, Lily Houghton, and Signature Resident Playwright Brandon Jacobs-Jenkins. Thank you all.
I'm happy to come up here. I'm your Borough President, Mark Levine. Hello, Signature family. Thank you, Paige. I consider this theater to be one of the great success stories in the history of arts in New York City. And it was Jim, his vision, that made this possible. He bequeathed an incredible gift to New York through decades and decades of labor, a really special place where there's an obsession with playwrights. Playwrights are at the center of the work here. Playwrights like Edward Albee and Tony Kushner and Anna DeVere Smith and so many others who've had their work here performed. And that would have been enough. To create an enduring institution like this would have been enough. But Jim went one step further and did something radical by creating a ticket structure, a pricing structure. It's very different than the way business is usually done. Usually after you build a new theater, you spend $70 million, then you have to charge a ton of money to get in, to pay off the debt, et cetera, et cetera. Jim turned that upside down. Jim raised even more money to make this possible so that he could then charge incredibly affordable rates for people to experience world-class theater, innovative theater. There have now been more than 1 million discounted tickets given out through this organization. It's incredible. At prices starting at $25, which you can barely see a movie in New York City for $25. So it's opening up the wonder of theater to a whole new generation of New Yorkers. Other than Jim himself, I think it's fair to say the person most responsible for this success, who you'll be hearing from momentarily, is Edward Norton, who put his heart and soul into this, first as an actor, I believe beginning in 1992, he'll tell you the story, but ultimately as leading in the board and leading in the fundraising and helping to break through walls to make this project possible. Unlike many of you, I didn't know Jim well. I did know him a little, and those interactions were enough for me to experience his warmth, his kindness, his generosity. Extraordinary for a person leading at that level. It's almost unheard of in the theater or in any sector. He is so richly deserving of being honored on this street. So all of you who made this project happen, to all of you who made this street renaming happen, let me shout out for sure the Council Member Erik Bottcher, who passed the bill to make this street naming possible. Please give him a big round of applause. And our buddy, State Senator Hoylman, who you'll be hearing from in a moment. You got good people representing you here. Congratulations to the Signature Theater family on this incredible honor. Thank you so much.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Erik Bottcher. I have the honor and privilege of representing Council District 3 and the City Council, the home of the Signature Theater, and as of today, the home of Jim Houghton Way. One of the great things that we're able to do on the City Council is usher through these street co-namings, and I can't think of anyone more deserving of having this co-naming than Jim Houghton. I didn't have the honor of knowing him in person, so I thought I would share some borrowed words from people who knew him best. The best friend of American playwriting. He was joined in his thoughtfulness, his joyfulness, openness, generosity, and presence by his magnificent wife, Joyce, and by his beautiful kids, Lily and Henry. The happiest I ever saw Jim was when his son, Henry, won the lottery that got him an apartment on the West Side, or prouder than when his daughter, Lily, got into Bennington. He could get people to work together. He could make difficult things look easy. He could make the impossible happen. An extraordinary person, and as caring a person as anyone ever met. I have not known a kinder soul, a more supportive collaborator, a more generous friend. So with this co-naming, future generations of New Yorkers will know the name Jim Houghton, and they'll know about his great contribution to New York City and to the world. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be part of this.
Good afternoon. I'm State Senator Brad Hoylman. What a pleasure, what an honor to be here today at Signature. The last time I was here, I saw a play about politics in Albany, New York. It was much better than it sounds. Much, much better. And it's always been a joy to come to this amazing theater. And the fact that we're celebrating such a luminary from Broadway and off Broadway as Jim Houghton is just an extraordinary testament to Signature, to all the playwrights and actors and everyone who pours their heart and soul into this great project. And let me say something else, which is not only did Jim, herald this theater and have so many playwrights in residence and really generations of playwrights that he helped mentor, but he created this amazing public space, a public space that the community in Hell's Kitchen and beyond can enjoy, where Community Board 4, which is represented by a couple of my colleagues here, can meet, and really a symbol of coming together in community, which fundamentally is what art is all about. So thank you to the artists, to the actors, to the playwrights, to every technician and expert who makes this art so wonderful here at Signature. I'm so proud to be here. Congratulations. Look forward to walking up and down Jim Houghton Way. Thank you very much.
It's great to see so many friends and people who have played a huge role themselves in the spirit of this place, putting it together physically, raising the money, supporting Jim, acting in it. I think, Jim was famous for saying that he wanted this to be a place where positive collisions happened, and I think even today we're seeing that. I think to get something like this done, the bureaucracy that's involved in getting a street renamed in New York, the fact that it got done is a testament to how passionately I think people wanted to honor Jim, and I really do want to thank the team at Signature, led by Beth and others, who were relentless about this idea and really determined to get it done. And Erik and Brad, and especially my old high school pal Mark Levine. We met when we were 14, if you can believe it, and here we are. I really do appreciate you guys picking up quickly on the appropriateness of this, or the good karma in this, and supporting us in it. A couple things struck me when I was thinking about it. One is that people forget what this block was. We shouldn't forget what this block was. This was Theater Row. This was when we all came up in New York. If you came up in New York in the 90s and before, this block wasn't these gleaming towers. It was this run of really humble, kind of fantastic little theaters, the Houseman and lots of others. And it actually had right there on Dyer. I still have a picture somewhere of the old brick wall of the row of theaters that would hear it. Actually, it said Theater Row on it, and the history of a lot of those theaters went back deep into New York's past. And I think it's wonderful. It's amazing and wonderful that Signature ended up carrying on the artistic spirit of this block. And so I think it's especially great that of all blocks in New York, this block's named for Jim, not just because of Signature, but because this is a block that's got theater history, and it should be named for someone in the theater. The other thing that I was thinking about is that, Jim did so many things. He ran the Juilliard Drama Division, and he built Signature Theater, and he was such he created so much opportunity for other people artistically, and he was such a great friend to artists that sometimes we forget to talk about what a great director Jim was himself. He was, I did 2 plays at Signature with him, Fragments with Edward Albee and Lanford Wilson's Burn This, and Jim really was one of the most astute and confidently gentle, artistic guides I've ever worked with. He was just a fantastic director. And I'm saying that in part because I think, Jim had infinite opportunity to focus on his own career as a director. He could have rebalanced how much he put into Signature against how much he chased chances to direct on Broadway. The guy could have directed plays without pause on Broadway, and he consistently chose to focus on building the institution and the community of Signature. And I think it's amazing because, let's just be honest, like, most people get into the theater as an artist with dreams of what it's going to do for them. And Jim really was like the John Kennedy principle applied to theater. He didn't think about what theater could do for him. He thought about what he could do for theater. And he thought about what theater could do for the community. So I don't think you name a block for a theater luminary just because they were a great artist or a star. You name a block for someone in the theater because they gave their life to elevating the theater, and specifically to thinking about what does theater do for the larger community, and widening the definition of what that community is. And others have spoken to that. Jim's, the way that he transformed the audience, who was in the audience, was focused on getting people in here. He really was, he thought about other people. He thought about other artists. He thought about how to elevate others. And I don't know a lot of people like that in this trade. He was uniquely free of the ego that is almost intrinsic to theatrical personalities, and I think that it's great. Also, I think that it's Jim Houghton, not Jim Houghton Road or Jim Houghton Street, which would sound very pedestrian, but Jim Houghton Way. And I think we should all take that up. Everybody here should commit that we're going to follow the Jim Houghton Way in our own ways as we go forward. Thanks a lot.
Anyways, thank you, Signature, and Paige Evans, and Beth Whitaker, and Rob, and Glenn, who I haven't been able to see, and I really want to thank you. And Jenna Clark-Embry, and City Council Member Erik Bottcher for making this absolutely stunning tribute to reality for my family. This is truly the greatest honor my father has ever received, because it's the most attuned to his mission. For me, on a personal note, it feels incredibly fitting for me that the street corner, I grew up across the street, my father caught me smoking my first ever cigarette, which I don't do anymore, while dramatically reading the bell jar, and I chose to do it underneath his office, which was awesome, is now named in his honor. He would never let me forget that. I think maybe the biggest testament to who you are is the sheer amount of people that care for your children after you are gone, and Henry and I are just so lucky to have you. But perhaps the biggest thank you I'd like to give today on my father's behalf is the woman behind his speeches, to whom there would be no Signature or Signature Center without, my iridescent mother, Joyce O'Connor, who passed away January 7th of this year. My father was really secretly super anxious all the time, which I don't know, maybe you guys all knew. He struggled his whole life from extreme dyslexia. My mother was a wonderful writer and would often write for him. Today, I'd like to read a snippet from a speech that she wrote before his death, because I believe it perfectly sums up anything I'd ever want to say today. Jim's life mission was to include and be included. He didn't build a theater, he built a community center with a lobby at its heart. He envisioned in this lobby orchestrated collisions, which I'm sure you all have heard, where artists of all ages and types would intersect with the audience. The lobby was more important to him than the stages, and he requested his memorial to be held in this lobby, and for Lila to direct it, because to him, it was sacred. The off-Broadway community has always sustained our family. Out the door to Signature yet again, every day, I would call to Jim to save the American theater. It was a joke. We had no money. His office was the telephone answering machine in our closet on 50th Street and 10th Ave. But it wasn't really a joke. That's what's happening off-Broadway. That's why some 20-something, goatee, long-haired, darling Jim left his family in San Francisco. He wanted to change the world. We wanted to change the world, one show at a time. Someone remarked to me recently that Jim's death was tragic, and I disagree. The timing of Jim's death was tragic. His life was the opposite. It was blessed. He made a home. He actually made two, both off Broadway. One at the theater and one at our apartment across the street. And these two homes collided, producing an off-Broadway theater family. Jim's life mattered in the deepest of ways. He made a community. He joined a community where he was beloved. Jim always wanted a speedboat and an old truck, and he never got those, but that's not a bad list of regrets for a life. He was part of something bigger than himself. He knew it.
I feel like it was an attack that I was put after her on my person, my character. I'm trying to move through this. Thank you so much for those words, Lily, and nothing says orchestrated collision like a street corner in Midtown, so something's making sense. My name is Brandon Jacobs-Jenkins. I'm a residency 5 playwright at the Signature Theater, which is supposed to be a 5-year residency. And I've definitely been here for about 12 years. But to be honest, this is truly like the platonic form of my artistic home. I feel like I was born here, reborn here. Someone told me that my tax returns from like 6 years ago are still in an office in the back room. Yeah, Beth is nodding. I've been to weddings here, I've been to a funeral here. Like this is truly, there's few places in the city that I know better than these 4 walls. I was told to come here and speak from the heart. Someone laughed. I guess I have no heart. But I'm gonna speak from that gaping void inside of me. When I think of Jim, I think of a couple of things. One is, I remember once, he ran the Juilliard Drama Division, but he also ran the Signature Theater, among many things in his life. And I remember saying to him once, I just realized that you literally oversee everyone from the late Edward Albee, who was our sort of preeminent American dramatist at the time, all the way to like that kid who just got off the bus from Iowa with a dream, And he was like, I know. And I realized that he's like one of these people have said up here a million times, but he was like one of these people who like got off on caring about people and caring for people. And just like making people feel love and feel that the impossible was possible. That was just like what he did in his life, which I find incredibly insane. And then, he also, people kind of minimize this, but he lived in the Manhattan Plaza. So this is his backyard, And what's so marvelous about him is that in a world where I guess everyone professes to having good intentions, he ultimately had like the willpower to change and take care of an entire art form, entire generation, multiple generations of an art form, literally from the backyard of his home. I mean, just think about how profound that is. There wasn't a desire for him to like get on jets and go to London and be a statesman, but he just invested not just in like the field, but in his active community, which was right behind, right behind him. I also think about, this is gonna get dark, but I remember, the last year of his life, he won like every Lifetime Achievement Award ever, which was psychotic and kind of cruel, I would say, but whatever. And he knew that. He would have always called them his cancer awards. And because I think he ultimately was someone who didn't seek recognition. Like he wasn't actually interested in being praised. And what I watched him do, though, is what he said to me basically was like, what's important about all these like Lifetime Achievement Awards I'm getting as I'm about to die is that I can use this opportunity to like throw light on other people, to like encourage, he literally went into to the end of his life, he was going into these foundation meetings, fighting for people to get the funding they needed, to get the support they needed to secure the funding that allowed generations of people to have access to the theater, to the space. I mean, that's how tirelessly he was in his mission. And when I think about this moment, I literally sitting there being like, how would he react to this? Because I think he would be very shy about it. I think he wouldn't actually be hyped. But I think what he would do is make this an opportunity to think about how this is actually the story of a community coming together to celebrate him. I had a weird dream about Jim that Lily knows about, like maybe 6 months ago. I just had a child about a year and a half ago. And I had this weird dream that Jim came to me with toys for her, which is insane. Sorry. Ooh. He came to me in the dream. He's like, I have toys for your daughter. I'm like, whoa, what are you doing in my dream? And he said, just so you know, it's about active community, active community. And I woke up and I texted Lily, and I was like, what could this have possibly meant? Like, why would your dad come in your dream and say active community? But I do think that there's something about this moment that is about asking us to think about this block now as a sacred space in the city. And on this block, there have been so many people who, I guess, have been born, who have been moved to tears, been moved to anger, who have found rest and respite, who found a second chance, you know. And the thing about Jim is that he really worked his way and his spirit into like every heart and mind he came in touch with. And so I think the challenge for those of us as we like walk past Jim Houghton Way is to just, like in any sacred space, try to remember how to move forward his mission, how to take what he did to us and do it for someone else. And even if that means pointing out to some random, you know, tourist who's lost and they're looking for like the gazillion bubble show, you know, be like, this guy Jim Houghton did something great here, you know, because it really does. I used to like walk by all these blocks being like, who's like Bubba Gump or whatever? He'd be like, Bubba Gump's Way. And I'm like, who is this? But now I understand that because just how much work it takes to make this happen, I realize that every one of these markings in the city is the story of a person who came and just changed so many lives and really gave life to the city and made the city what it was. So I just hope we all can, as we trod along this banal part of the street, try to keep his love in mind and use it as an opportunity to further in our lives. And I just cried in front of everyone, so that was cool. But thank you guys. Yeah, that's the Jim Houghton Way, crying in front of everyone. All right, thank you.
Artistic alumni of Signature Theater who came to celebrate Jim included Annie Baker, Becky Ann Baker, Dylan Baker, Joe Bonney, Martha Clark, Will Eno, Hallie Foote, David Henry Huang, Charles Mee, Edward Norton, Lois Smith, Harris Yulin, and many more.